What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one wants to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I want to talk about what's going on with the overall market, what you should be watching for tomorrow, and how NIO is looking from a technical standpoint, looking at the current data. But before breaking things down about what's going on with NIO and the overall market, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon, ends tomorrow, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market and NIO. So right now, guys, I just want to talk about something important. So looking at the charts, things are looking very, very different from before. NIO is very tight right now. It's been going back and forth in the morning, and now it just basically traded flats for the entire day. One thing that's good about NIO is the fact that we saw NIO hold up quite decently while the market ended up selling off pretty hard. And we are approaching the end of the month, which you know what that means. Deliveries are going to be coming out very soon. Now, some reports showed some signs of weakening demand in China, which is making some investors a little bit concerned for NIO. So we will see if that ends up being the case or not. But if anything, I'm still very optimistic that NIO will do very well as we get to like November and December. I know September tends to be September tends to be very strong for deliveries, but no, not November. I mean October. Sorry, October. That tends to be the one of the like a little bit weaker months of the fourth quarter before November and December become very strong. So we'll see what happens during this cycle, during this trend. We'll see how NIO does. As of right now, NIO is up about 0.72%, holding up quite decently. NIO put on his Twitter page that basically they really captivated to people's experiences and people's emotions by basically talking about summer, joyful lifestyles, and different events that could be used and joyful moments, which are once again very important in life. And they really made a lot of people think about that. So they're doing a very good job at advertising this, and they're continuing to grow on a daily basis. So I think this is very good as they're getting that emotional aspect down, incentivizing people who want to buy a car and go on adventures to buy a NIO car. And I think it could be very helpful for them buy some kind of sedan or an SUV. It's really, really good for families, especially in countries like China. Now, for Wednesday, which is tomorrow, I don't really see any major data coming out. I don't really see anything at all that's significant besides like crude oil data. So we're going to be a little light on the data side. As far as NIO's technicals go, we got a buy rating from Deutsche Bank. The price price ratio is very flat. It's dropping a little bit more as NIO is losing some relative strength. And looking at the price comparison to SPY, it's very similar. On top of this, NIO did outperform the market a bit today as it managed to get a bounce. And NIO has a tendency of being a little bit green on Wednesdays. Wednesday's going to be one of the strongest days of the week. We're up about 56% of the time. And last but not least, the shorting has not gone up much for NIO. NIO's volume is about 42 million, which is quite decent. And overall, it's looking quite well as it's trying to hold up. But what about for tomorrow? How do I think things are going to go? In my opinion, guys, I think there's a good chance NIO might gap up with the market, then just trade sideways for the rest of the day because NIO is becoming very, very stationary. And the market got a very aggressive sell-off today due to the fact that we saw yields going up to the highest place they were since 2016. And we started to see the dollar continuing to break out, giving us more and more bearish signals. So with these economists and their fears emerging, and we had some data that came out that was kind of bearish. The data that came out today was kind of bearish would be the consumer confidence report dropping, new home sales were down. And looking at the overall index, the indices that came out right here, the indices of data, they're looking kind of like very flat, very similar to what many people were anticipating. So nothing too big for that. So what do I see for tomorrow? I think NIO is going to have a very boring day, unfortunately, because NIO is getting very tight. If you look at the last couple of days, it's just been this whole back and forth thing. I think tomorrow, NIO may gap up towards 8.5 and start pushing towards 8.8, then reject and start cooling off and trade super, super flat and close very flat. If anything, I think that's very likely for tomorrow. We may close very close to where we are right now. Part of why I say that is because of SPY. I mean, this thing has a bullish divergence, so we might get a small bounce tomorrow and attempt to bounce in the morning before this thing starts to cool off a bit. But I don't think the market is truly super bullish. Overall, the market is looking more bearish on the daily chart. So look for a gap up, maybe a small bounce and a failure, and then another sell-off tomorrow. I think that's very probable looking at the current trend. And this is still looking very bearish on the daily chart, so I could see it getting very close to the 200 EMA. On SPY, I also wanted to add that we have this gap above here. We failed to fill the gap, so it's still looking, weaker than expected for many investors. For when it comes to Tesla, this is looking quite okay. We have a bearish cross on the daily chart on the MACD, but one thing that could be forming is a possible head and shoulders. We have like a left shoulder here, the head right here. Could we get a little bounce on Tesla back to like 260 and then come down later? That's a real possibility, but no guarantees. That would be like the more bullish case, us like trying to push above 250 and holding it. If it manages to hold above 250, then 260 is on the table. If it fails to do so, you're going to be watching 238 as support alongside 240. If it gets above that range, that's going to be if it gets below that range, that's going to be a lot more bearish, and we could see Tesla start sinking towards 230 or so. So watch those levels very carefully. 238 to 240 as support, and then watch resistance around that 250 area. Whichever one it ends up breaking will determine which way this thing moves, and I think that that's what's going to be very probable for the next couple of days. For Apple stock, this is once again very flat, approaching our 200 EMA on the daily chart. On the 4-hour time frame, is also looking very flat. There's a possible head and shoulders, which could have brought it down to 171, and that's exactly where Apple went to. So now it's looking like Apple, with the bullish divergence, it could bounce soon, but no guarantees just yet. I'm thinking my best prediction would be us, after selling off so aggressively, the market potentially getting a bounce, maybe like gapping up and then slowing down as time goes on. And that's my prediction for Apple too. We might gap up towards 173, reject, and then start cooling off a bit more. I think that that's pretty much just normal for the market. It's not really anything that's out of the ordinary. I think it's something that could be very much just worth noting. For the QQQ, we have a bullish divergence. We could see this thing try to rebound towards 355 plus, reject, and then start trading sideways. That is very possible for that. For Nvda stock, this could be forming kind of like a cup and handle. The handle could be forming. I could see this thing retrace a little bit towards this 417 to 415 area, then make an attempt to bounce after that. But as of right now, it's looking kind of weak. The VIX is up over 12%. And normally when the VIX is up this much, either the next day or I would say like the day after that, they tend to be green. We tend to get a green day for the markets when the VIX is up this much the previous days. So we might see the VIX cool off a bit. Maybe not tomorrow, but I would say by Thursday, that's very probable. And we also have a triple bearish divergence that developed on the VIX's chart. You can see it right here on the 30 minutes time frame, also on the 4-hour time frame. With these bearish divergences and a potential rising wedge forming, we might see the VIX eventually cool off a bit as the market tries to bounce. So watch that very carefully. The dollar is still holding 106, which is slowing the markets down. So watch that very carefully as well. Finally, for NIO, I just want to mention that NIO might get a little bounce again in the morning, kind of pump the markets, get very close to $9, cool off as time goes on, hit 8.8, then continue to trade sideways and still close kind of flat. So that's my prediction for NIO. I think it's going to get a very flat close, and I think it's very important to watch it very carefully during capricious times. All right, so hopefully this video was helpful. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for listening, and peace out.